I'm willing to say he's the basement coach of the year.
Two games, they're gonna get something rolling.
This is the Sports Saga podcast presented by Aldias. I put emphasis on Dias because you screwed it up last time and said Diaz. So, no, all good. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As promised, today we're bringing you our top 5 Boston sports moments. Going to be a lot of fun. Brady Kudo and Tyler Sumner here with you. Keegan Hamlet is getting some beauty rest. Blame him. I was too. And then I got a scare when I woke up and saw 9:50 on my clock. And Tyler was like 9:45. Okay. No. All right. Whatever. We're doing it. We're here. Cool. Top 5 Boston sports moments. Boston is obviously I'm 45. We're 45 minutes away from it, roughly. It's a rich history. You know, when you talk about American history, Boston's a rich city. Sports history, it's a rich city. And it's really hard to narrow it down, I feel like, to just 5 moments. But I think we were able to do it. I'd like to go first. We're gonna go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And my 5th moment, my 5th all-time favorite, whatever, is 1970 Stanley Cup Final, Game 7. In overtime, Bruins beat not Game 7, Game 4, excuse me. Bobby Orr had that goal, and we all know that famous picture of him flying through the air. Gave Bruins their first title in quite a few years. So I'd say, and it's an underrated moment. I know hockey's obviously not as big as, in basketball and football, whatever, but I feel like it's a moment that, it's pretty iconic when you think about it.
Yeah, Brady, you mentioned iconic because of the fact that, like, when you think of Boston, a lot of people think of the Boston Bruins and the Boston Red Sox and the Boston Celtics and the New England Patriots. And that goal by Bobby Orr, I mean, Bobby Orr is often looked at one of the greatest hockey players of all time.
He's the greatest defenseman ever, I think.
Right. He's up there with Gretzky for me as, like, in my top 3 of all time. But my number 5 moment is the Boston Celtics won the NBA Finals in 2008 for the first time in 22 years. And the reason I have this at number 5 is because of the fact this is the first time they won a championship without Larry Bird, Dennis Johnson, Robert Parrish, and they had a new head coach in Doc Rivers.
That's true.
And this group of guys, I mean, Paul Pierce was riding solo for a while.
Yeah.
And then you get KG, one of the greatest power forwards of all time, and arguably the only man who can put up a fight against Steph Curry as the greatest three-point shooter of all time, and Ray Allen. And to see them beat the Lakers in 7 games in that series, or 6 games, it was either 6 or 7. I was only 3 years old at the time, or 5, excuse me.
Sorry.
But it was such a great moment because at the end of the day, you look at the relationship those guys still had, Paul Pierce and Kobe, and just to hear the stories about that series, I think it was one of the best Boston moments, and that's why I have it at number 5 for me.
That's good. I know. I like that. My number 4, and this will make sense once I get into, because it's a lot, not a lot, but it'll make sense why it's not towards the top. Is the 2004 World Series win.
Really?
Yeah. Obviously, first in almost 100 years, right? I know they did it on the road. Whatever. So win's a win, right? You get tough Cardinals. That was a tough Cardinals team that they beat, but you look at this team, and as much as like they were a wild card. We talked about this very recently. Talking about this, when were we talking about it?
We were talking about it.
Was gotten inducted. It was a couple days ago. And I feel like even though Ortiz just delivered in that postseason when it mattered. That was I feel like not a win now team, but they were expected to do well. Folk, Wakefield, even like guys like Mike Timlin, who Derek Lowe, Kevin Millar, Bill Miller, like guys that you can make a lot of comparisons to that 13 team journeymen who had that one mindset and it was to win now and that they all contributed. But I would put the '04 World Series as the fourth best. So I didn't even mention Manny. What did I not even mention? Veritek. Like, go on. But I feel like that's a team that I wouldn't put them higher because they were expected to win. Does that make sense? Where like that's why I don't have I'll put this way, I don't have the '08 title in my top five. I'd had it right. I'd have that's my honorable mention.
Yeah, me
They were
too.
expected to win. If it was, a bunch of, as JJ Redick calls them, plumbers and firemen on a basketball team. I stole that. So my dad was like, "Who do you play against?" Plumbers and firemen. And he gets a kick out of it. He laughs, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm serious. Like if put a bunch of plumbers and firemen on a team that win the title, yeah, it's probably number one. But yeah, what's your fourth best
So
moment?
for me, mine's kind of an in-game moment. My
Oh
number
my, see,
four
I
moment,
didn't do any of those.
it's Malcolm Butler's interception against the Seattle
Oh,
Seahawks to win the Super Bowl.
oh,
Um,
this
I
should
am,
have
of
gone
course,
top
folks.
10. This is too hard.
See, folks, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, but I like to give credit where credit is due. And that play was an exceptional play. I mean, Malcolm Butler, I don't even think realizes what happened. He was at the right place at the right time, and he just caught the interception to stop the Seahawks from winning it. I believe the back-to-back Super Bowl, right?
Why did I hire you? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it was back to back.
Yes. So I think that interception was one of those plays where it goes down in NFL history as one of the greatest Super Bowl moments too.
You're not wrong. Yeah, that was back to back. Because they had beaten what's their face? Denver the year before.
They beat them like 49
It'll
to
be
8.
something I like too. Something ridiculous. 43 to 40, 46 to 8, 46 to,
Something like that,
something
yeah.
like that. Something absurd. Um, I didn't think about in-game moments. I just thought like the culmination of the city when everyone was happy. That I'll lead into the next one when a dynasty was being born.
Mm.
With that being said, my number three moment is the 2005 New England Patriots Super Bowl win,
Mm.
back to back, 3 out of 4. I recognize it wouldn't be for another 10 plus years they would go on to win another. Like they had that drought where Brady, excuse me, in his first like 5 years had 2, 3 Super Bowls. And people were like, "Oh yeah, if Brady retired after his first 6 years, he'd be a Hall of Famer." Like how Brady people Brady say, um, people say Brady had 3 Hall of Fame careers in one.
Yeah,
It did. Like it's not, you can't debate that. Like he did. It's the first part, which is the first 6 years, and he won like 3 Super Bowls. Then he had that latter part or that middle part where he didn't win any Super Bowls, but he like won an MVP. He was the passing leader just about every single year.
right.
Consistently made the postseason. Consistently made the AFC Championship game, and then he had the latter part of his career where he won another 4 Super Bowls, 3 with the Pats, 1 with the Bucks. Didn't win the MVP, but for winning the Super Bowl, who cares about the MVP? So look at the '05 win. That was a tough Eagles team too, right? And I put it as because that 3 out of 4. That's why I put it there. That's the sole reason. You know that call back to back 3 out of 4.
Yep.
It's a really good team. A lot of guys who were towards the end of their careers, right? Tyler, Richard Seymour. Um, you know, I'm not. I think Troy Brown was still there. I could be wrong. Um, again, guys.
Deion Branch, I think, might have been there.
Say that again.
Deion Branch might have
I
been
think
there.
Deion Branch was there, but yeah, he was there for a few years. I think he had just gotten there. I could be wrong. I'm not a Pats fan either. You could tell, but nonetheless, I think the culmination of that, being 3-4. How do you not? How do you not put at least get recognition? You know what I mean? Like, what's your number three?
So my number three is another Patriots moment.
Okay.
And it's Tom Brady and the Patriots complete the 28-3 comeback for Brady's record-tying 5th Super Bowl ring. I mean, this is a game that we could go back to and arguably say it's the greatest Super Bowl ever.
It's the greatest comeback ever. It's the greatest Super Bowl ever. I watched
And
that game start to finish. I said, and as that game ended, I've even watched great games now. Even that Bills Chiefs AFC Championship game. I was like,
and
yeah,
to
but that
say
that wasn't Super Bowl 51. Nothing's going to compare to that. Nothing.
it's the greatest Super Bowl ever when you're bringing the Atlanta Falcons into a conversation, that's saying something.
But forget
That Atlanta Falcons team
how
was
good the
dominant.
Falcons were.
They should have beaten the Patriots that year, but the
Yes.
problem was in that second half,
Tom Brady was the quarterback.
They gave up the run game as well. Atlanta gave up the run game, and then you really saw Brady, and you say to yourself, okay, this guy's actually the greatest of all time because he knew how to adapt to a fourth quarter situation. And not to take away, the Super Bowl MVP of that game should have been James White.
I mean, because he had one touchdown run.
He had the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, but what did he do before then? You can look at the whole game.
That is true.
Yeah, it should have.
Nonetheless, that is my number three, the 28-3 comeback. What's your number two?
The 28-3 comeback.
Okay, so are we moving?
No, we just excited, but I put it as two because again, my number one is
we don't give the number one away.
No, I know. I'm saying the number one hits home for a lot of Bostonians, so I think we're on the same track with number one. I have a hunch. As I wrote it down,
my number two.
As I wrote my number one now, I'm like, I feel like we're gonna have the same one. But I put the 28-3 because it's the greatest Patriots moment ever. It's the greatest Super Bowl ever. It's the greatest comeback ever. In a lot of people's eyes, maybe should be number one, but it's not. Because really, the Falcons should have won. But if it was any other quarterback on the other side of that thing, Falcons would be Super Bowl champions. But yeah.
So, as last night I made this list and I reorganized it this morning.
Oh, you made it last night? I made it. I made it 20 minutes before we went on the air.
I flipped 1 and 2. So my number two is the Red Sox winning the 2004 World Series over the St. Louis Cardinals.
Wow.
For their first championship in 86 years. At the time, this was the longest drought going.
Yeah.
Until the Cubs decided to make it 108.
Take the friggin' win.
Yeah, it'll be another
100. But the reason is, and I was only a year and 4 months. You weren't old yet. I remember some of it. You know, you had that team with Pedro Martinez.
Please, you remember some of it.
Yeah, I watched a movie called Cowboy Up about the 04 team, so that's how I remember it.
I watched a Red Sox movie called, what's the one with Jimmy Fallon? Fenway Dream?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh my God, I don't know.
But you had Pedro Martinez, Mr. Clutch, Mr. Hall of Famer as of 2022.
Finally called
David Big Papi Ortiz, ladies and gentlemen. Manny Ramirez, Kevin Youkilis, Mike Lowell,
Gerald Green. Forget about you.
Jason Veritek. And the reason this World Series win is a top 2 Boston sports moment of all time is because you had, after this World Series, after we won this, you had people, relatives, children, going to their parents' graves and putting World Series flags on them. The ones that didn't get to see a championship in their years of living. And it was such an emotional moment because we never thought we'd see a World Series championship because of the curse of Bambino. And then you had David Ortiz that whole postseason. And folks, we're going to get into right now why he's Mr. Clutch. The wild card game. He hits a home run, walks off, sends us to the ALDS. The ALDS, he does the same thing that sends us to the ALCS. And the ALCS, he does the same thing that sends us to the World Series.
Amen.
What more could you say about David Ortiz?
Amen.
You can't.
No.
He's the greatest clutch hitter
Yes.
in baseball history.
Oh, I agree.
And that '04 team to me is something that I'll forever cherish because this is the argument I can make towards Yankee fans when they ask how many championships I've seen in my lifetime. I've seen 4, they've seen 1. Okay. But just the culmination of that and everything was just so memorable, and it'll go down there as the greatest World Series win of all time.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. My number one.
Do you want to both say it? Because I think I know where you're going with this.
All right, let's
Is it about Poppy?
let's say it on three.
One. Well, I have it worded different.
Okay, it's fine. Well, if we,
Okay.
as long as it's there.
Okay.
One,
1, 2, 3.
2013
David
World
Ortiz at the
Series win.
plate in the 2013 ALCS. Bases loaded. Sox down 5-1.
Time out. That is not the greatest Boston sports moment ever.
It is for me. It is for me.
I think.
I'll let you go.
Okay,
I'll
so I
finish
put the
my saying after.
2013 World Series, and I know that's really recent. I understand that, but you got to think about the events leading up.
Yeah, you do.
At least for me, it was a scary time.
It was.
I'll never forget this, right? I was living in Fall River at the time. And I remember where I was going, what I was doing. I was driving to my grandparents' house.
Mhm.
I was going to go visit my grandparents. And, I get there and, they already got it right on the news about what happened. And I was like, oh my God. Confused. I don't know, this is what? I was 8, 7, 8. I was confused, scared. I had just turned 8. Confused, scared. Right. I probably wondered what the Red Sox were going to do about it. But in all seriousness, but what scared me was that I went back to school that Monday and I had a teacher who was in a building like next door, right to where the bombs went off. I'll never forget that story. He's telling us, and I was like, oh my God. Like building where that's just how he described it. I remember he was like, I think he was like building where bombs went off, building where I was. I went, we were scared because you didn't know where these guys were going next, right? South. We all know now they had plans to go to New York. If you've seen Patriots Day,
Yes.
um, Poppy speech.
Brady, I'll
You're
say that,
reminiscing, right?
dude. When I think of that speech, it's hard not to get emotional.
Oh yeah,
It's one of those things, and we're not going to cuss here on the Sports Saga podcast, but what
yeah.
he
Alex
said,
Brendan. Sorry, Alex, you're great. Continue.
with what he said was just an amazing. And to piggyback off where you were, I was at a Little League game. Well, not yet. I had a game that day. My dad was a motor coach driver, and he actually had the marathon that day.
Oh wow.
So my dad was driving around Boston, and then he was about 3 blocks away from when the bomb happened, and he said, "You just heard the ground shook."
Oh my God.
And it was scary. And the 2013 World Series one is an honorable mention for me, only because it's recent. And you look back at that team should not have won that World Series. The reason they won it was because of the motivation for the city of Boston. That team in general was not that good of a team.
That's why I put it as one. Is because
Yes.
when you look at a team that has like
I mean, you had Mike
solid,
Napoli,
I mean, when you have
Obi Ellsbury.
like when they had solid, when you have solid pitching, 1 through 5 in the rotation is good. You have a decent bullpen. You got a lot of power, but other than that, like what culminated is that they had a lot of they had their average hitters, they had their power hitters, they had their speed guys, but it wasn't names that popped off the charts. Mike Napoli, Jared Saltalamacchia, Johnny Gomes, Daniel Nava, Shane Victorino. It wasn't guys that you looked at and you were like, oh no, no. Those guys are like, hey, he I. You know what I mean? Like, so I think just again the culmination of it all. And I understand it's recent, but like the whole beard thing, and then that extra motivation, and then just the way it culminated, at home for the first time in 90 something years. Like, you can't write that stuff. Can't write that stuff. And I think that's what made it so special. It's the first one I remember vividly. And it's one where, I think just to win it at home, and the events leading up is to why I put it at number one.
Yeah. For me, my number one, arguably the greatest call in Red Sox history.
Arguably.
David Ortiz at the plate. The
Uh,
2013 ALCS, bases loaded. Sox are down 5-1. And I'll put this in perspective for you folks listening out there who might be young, who might be not old
oh,
enough to
God
realize.
almighty. I'm sorry. This week a passing just came in. Red Sox will not deal Xander Bogaerts. Continue.
I was gonna say, we know that if this moment didn't happen, Sox were done. They were out. They forced a game 7. And it's 5-1. And Ortiz hits a game-tying grand slam to keep the Red Sox postseason hopes alive. Folks, as I've said before, this is Big Papi. This is David Ortiz. This is number 34. This is the greatest postseason hitter of all time.
Might as well act it out.
Ballpark. That's the greatest hitter.
Might as well act it out right now.
This guy right here, this park, is home to that grand slam.
Yes, it is. Good job.
And you have the cop going like this in the bullpen. Steve the cop.
Hogan? What's his last name? Something like that.
Steve Hogan, something like that.
Hogan?
My dad was good friends with him.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember everybody thought Torrey Hunter broke his ribs the way he went over that.
Oh yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen,
you know what's funny too is that, like, at least in the minor leagues, David Ortiz and Torrey Hunter were like best friends. I mean, they still are, but like growing up,
oh yeah,
that's what I found ironic, not ironic, but it was just funny. Like, should have game tying grand slam over your best friend. Continue. Sorry.
But I mean, Brady, you and I both know that every time we see this moment, we get goosebumps. It's one of the most electric moments in all of sports history in the baseball. And it proves again that why David Ortiz is Mr. CLUTCH, clutch. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame for it. I'm so grateful for him because he gave me his bat in 2011. Right on the barrel where the pine tar is cracked because that's where he hit a home run over the Green Monster right down to Lansdowne Street. That ball was crushed.
Poppy hit opposite field. No, I'm kidding.
Oh yeah, Poppy hits opposite.
I saw it.
Poppy goes Oppo Taco.
I know.
But the reason that's my number one over the 04 World Series is because, as Brady mentioned, there was so much leading up to that moment. So much. And Poppy was saying it in his Hall of Fame speech where he said he had to do something big that only Big Poppy could do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put Jacoby Ellsbury in that situation, he's striking out.
Forget about it.
The Red Sox are going home.
Forget about it.
But you put David Ortiz up there, arguably the most intimidating postseason hitter of all time, too.
Probably. Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I had a curfew at that time, so I couldn't watch the whole game. My mom recorded it, and my dad was at work early in the morning, and my mom records it, and we wake up in the morning. And she says, "Tyler, come out here. Your breakfast is ready." Never forget what I had that day, too. I had a cinnamon raisin bagel with scrambled eggs and bacon.
Ooh, she knew.
Oh, she knew. She had to go big for little Big Poppy. And she turns on the TV, and she shows the Grand Slam.
Wow.
And she said, "Tyler, I'm not a big sports guy like you, but I know this moment's big to everybody."
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, "Mom, that's why they call Poppy Big Poppy." Nonetheless, I mean, you just heard, you knew once that ball was hit off the crack of that bat that ball was gone.
Yeah.
You
No doubt
you
about it.
knew that.
No.
And in my opinion, as people say Ted Williams is the greatest Red Sox of all time, in my opinion, it's David Ortiz
Okay.
because of the fact that I never got to witness Ted Williams play. We never got to witness Ted Williams play. Yes, is he the only hitter to ever have a 400 season batting average? Yes, and that's monumental. But at the time of recording this, we were not alive of David for Ted Williams. And of our lifetime, Poppy has bought us so many Boston sports moments that we could still mention here. Arguably, he would be holding most of the top 10, in my opinion. And I can run after this. I could give you some of my honorable mentions in there.
Just give
And
one because I gave mine with the
yeah,
over. Just give one
but
because we
Ortiz,
get a time limit. It's telling us to get out soon. So
Ortiz hitting that game tying grand slam for me is the number one Boston sports moment for me. And my honorable mention that I
hey,
considered throwing in there
really quick, get your honorable mention in.
was Isaiah Thomas going out and dropping 53 points the night after his sister died.
Oh,
And I
said Isaiah Thomas. I almost said, "Are you kidding me?" But that's a good one.
that was a great
That's a good one.
moment because it was
Oh
a very
yeah.
emotional
Oh
performance.
yeah.
And so yeah. And I think another honorable mention for me that I was very close to putting at number 4 over Malcolm Butler was David Ortiz's final game at Fenway Park.
Dear God. All right.
His final game, that crowd at Fenway Park
Yeah. No. No. It's
was
slamming.
I got tears in my eyes when I watched
Oh
that game.
boy. All
To
right.
see him, but nonetheless, my number one
Oh.
moment of all time, David Ortiz, 2013 Grand Slam. And then you hear Dave O'Brien, it's back, Ortiz did it again.
Like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. It's in the link tree below. Still looking for sponsorship opportunities. Email us, thesportsagapod@gmail.com if you might be interested. Get your business out there. It's all in the description. Everything you need is in the description. Comment on who you think, if you disagree with one of our lists, whoever had the better list. If we left something out that's really monumental here, let us know. Tyler, Brady, goodbye.